Hi everyone, today I'm going to walk you through a basic watercolor tutorial on a landscape. You're going to start out by just putting your name and your hour that you come see me on the back of the page, and then flip it over and draw your ground. I usually split up my paper into thirds in my head, and then I choose either the bottom third or the top 2/3 to put my dividing line on, and I don't necessarily draw a straight line because it's not always straight on the horizon. So I just draw my line where I want it, and I get that established, and then I rough out anywhere where I might have to leave it white, like any buildings or things that I know I want to, either leave white or want to come back for later and want to go around on when I create the wash for the sky. In this case, a bridge or a gate and a tree over in the corner. So right now I'm establishing my sky, and the way I do that is I just flip my page over. I like to work smarter, not harder, so I always let the water drip down and let gravity help me. And so I work from the middle down and get that paper wet where I want my sky to go. Anywhere where the water is where your pigment's gonna go. So rule of thumb, if you don't want your paint to go there, don't get it wet. So I've got my water down, and what I'm doing now is I'm getting a good amount, a pretty heavy pigment of red. And I'm just tracing along that line that I drew out earlier. And I'm just kind of getting that down so that there's that separation there. And if I want a brighter red, I'm going to go back in at this point and add some more pigment. Then I'm going in and adding in paint and water as I want, and just bringing it down. And again, letting gravity help me just pull that paint down to the bottom of the page. If I want to go in with some darker red at the top, that's fine. That's totally fine, because sometimes the sky has different values to it. So right now I'm coming in and adding in clouds. What I'm doing is getting a good deal of red pigment on my brush and then just dropping it into those wet areas, and it just kind of smooshes out and expands out just like a cloud in the sky. Now I'm getting some yellow on my brush because I actually want this wash to be a variegated wash. I'm going to be doing a variegated wash, a graded wash, and a flat wash in this piece. And the variegated wash is 2 or more colors. And so I'm choosing red and yellow for my variegated wash. I thought it would be nice to come in and do some yellow for like either a sunrise or a sunset. And right now I'm just dropping that in, just like I did with my red, and I'm letting that mix. And of course it's going to create some oranges, and that's totally fine too. I'm going to flip over my paper while that's drying and get some more water on there. And here's where I'm going to start my graded wash. Now remember, a graded wash goes from dark to light, and we get our paper wet for a graded wash too. So my paper's wet where I want the paint to go. And then I'm going to get a good deal of orange on my brush and build up that pigment. And then I'm going to take that along my horizon line as well. I'm being pretty careful not to let them bleed together. I can always come back and do detail work later, but if I want to work on this part while my sky is drying, and I don't want them to blend together, I'm just going to leave a little smidgen of space there, just so that my orange doesn't bleed into my sky. So I've got my horizon line there, and just like I did with my sky, to begin with, I'm just pulling that color down, adding more water to make it lighter, if that's something I choose to do.
Yeah. Because painting
Now my
is,
piece
and
has
recipes
dried
are
a
art.
little bit, so what I'm going to do is come back in
Cooking is
on that
definitely an
sky
art.
that's mostly dry, and if I want to change any of the clouds or add in some darker values, I can come in and I've got more control. It's not going to bleed out into the rest of the sky now.
Not
So the
us.
clouds I can add more definition to. Like I said, I've got more control over where they go. You can always add in more water, but I can get a really strong pigment here. And if I want to do any detail work in the sky, now would be a good time to do it because, as I said, that paper has dried for long enough that I can go back in now and continue my work. So while my page dries, I can practice my detail work. You're going to want a detail brush, so like a small brush that's pointed on the end. That's why good bristle care is so important and why we put them bristle up. I'm going to get a good amount of pigment on there, not too wet, not too dry. And when I push down on the paper, I'm not going to push as hard as I can. I see a lot of people and they just push as hard as they can with their brush. It splays all the bristles out. There's no control. They get frustrated. They don't like it. Well, that's because you want to make sure your brush is pointed at the end and you get a good amount of pigment on there. But when it's time to do your detail work, you want to barely touch that brush down to your paper, and then you can use it just the same way as you would use a pencil. You can use it to write your name or draw a tree, for example. So once you have your technique down, you can use that to do any sort of detail work in your painting. I'm using it to do a tree and a fence, and then you can come in and I'm doing a flat wash there to create kind of like a gravel road coming in. If you don't like the color of something, you can always go over it and change it. And as I said, once you have that technique down, you can use it to do pretty much anything you want. It just adds a lot of layers to your piece and makes it look finished. I'm finishing up my foreground, erasing any pencil marks that I see in here, and just doing kind of one last double check. If I want to make sure that my sky is the way I want it, I can always go back in and do some detail work. That's a great thing about watercolors. You can always go back and add more or change it a little bit. And then once I'm happy with it, I can go ahead down in the corner and I can sign my name.